Lovely to see you.
Lovely to see you too.
Thank you so much for joining us. I guess a reminder to the audience and anyone listening that well, not a reminder, but just to share that Jane and I did some brilliant work with you. I think it was probably last year or maybe the year before, around how we wanted to understand how we as individuals show up and kind of our personalities and our behaviours, and then potentially to be working together how we would get that into our day-to-day as a group in terms of the trapeze offering, which has done wonders for us, and we're still work in progress, as we all are. But I guess I just wanted to be able to bring that into our community as well, and share a little bit about what you do. So are you happy to just start off and giving everyone a little bit of a summary, and then we can go into a bit more of a conversation?
Absolutely. And it's lovely to be back together. It was last February when we were together, which feels like so much has happened since then.
It does.
So a little bit about what I do. I've been in corporate career for 20 years. I've worked for brands such as Nike and Apple. And then I kind of got to a point in my own career where I loved the brands that I was working for, and the values that they stood for. But I was totally addicted to work. I was living to work, and that was a realization that I had, whereas I wanted to move to work to live. But I also wanted to have a deeper impact. And whilst I was able, to do that somewhat in my corporate career, I wanted to go several layers deeper. And that started with me, and then I've started Coach to Growth, and it's just over 2 years in now. And I'm working with some phenomenal clients with this real blend of emotional freedom and learning how our mind either serves us powerfully or holds us back. And then doing business and leadership development as well, and combining those two together.
That's the thing. It's how your mind, you could be the best person in your actual job or technical and your kind of skill set experience, but actually it's how your mind serves you. And that's what I've always realized that from my perspective as well, because as you'll know, I have some traits like people pleasing, or I did. They're getting less now. Where that would lead every decision I did, and every piece of work I finished from end to end. And if I didn't get the results in terms of the potentially the thanks from a client or them understanding how much I put into it, then I'd be left absolutely empty. So I was kind of my work and my contribution was always actually, has my mind served that? It's hard, isn't it, to differentiate, but it's interesting that people don't put them together. Don't think that the output they have is anything to do with their mind.
Totally. And I think it's a really good point. And thank you for sharing, so vulnerably, so early on into this conversation, where your mind was holding you back. Because we all have it, but it's whether it's on a conscious or a subconscious level. And it actually starts from such a young age. It can be one experience or a language we've learned in our household or through influential people in our lives that then creates this. That's the only language that we know and the only way we know how to operate. So for you, it was people pleasing or having a restless mind. For me, it was through addiction to succeed and achieve. And that was through feeling good enough. My identity became attached to, if I achieved, then I was good enough. I was seen, I was heard, I was loved, which is total BS, right? Yeah. But it was so subconscious, I didn't realize. And, I always remember my boss would sit down with me and say, Nicky, you've just won this award, or you've just won this title as performance in leadership in Europe. You're the best performing leader, da, 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 da. And I'd lean into him and be like, great, what's next? I couldn't even inhale and be present with what he just told me, because I just wanted what's next. And subconsciously, I believed I'd be happy when, and you could fill that dot in with, I got the next title, or I achieved the next result, or the next award. The reality is that excitement and that joy came for like an hour, and then it was gone.
Then you're never happy, presumably, because you're always having to reach something that doesn't really, you've already surpassed that, and then you're going to the next thing.
Right. So what I've actually realized, and the work I've done on myself first, was understanding that our mind's like a computer, and we've got decades of depending on how old we are, decades of conditioning and behavioral adaptations to understand where they come from, and then rewire and understand that we are whole as we are good enough, and we can rewire those behavioral adaptations to serve us powerfully. And the reality is, for me now, I achieve more. And because I'm not attached to it, I set bigger goals. I'm able to serve people powerfully. My identity is not attached to anything other than helping people and having true fulfillment and being present and grateful into today. and then my heart is full.
Yeah.
I'm able to serve people, and then the rest is history. So yeah.
Because actually it can, from personal experience, it can be exhausting when
Yes.
what you're doing isn't what you're seeing, mentally seeing or feeling. Because you then feel like you can never do it. Well, a bit like I just said to you, you can always go up. If there's something more, then you're never satisfied. And in a sense, I was never satisfied because my clients or, my friends or whatever it was, were never satisfied in my eyes because I wasn't getting what I thought I deserved for the work, or that people pleasing aspect. Yeah, exhausting.
Yeah. Well, with a people pleaser, you're wearing a mask all the time to be able to blend, to make sure that you feel loved and accepted by merging into the person that you think that person right there and then needs you to be, and you lose sense of your boundaries. I mean, the strengths in each of our behavioral adaptations, like for me, I've achieved amazing things in my career, so it served me powerfully, but it was also not full. And the same for you, being a people pleaser. You genuinely have love and care for people, which is why you're awesome at what you do, but it doesn't have to be at the sacrifice of your boundaries. You don't need to wear a mask because you are an awesome person. And actually, when I love you the most is when you have your boundaries in, and I've seen them play out, and I've seen how they serve you more powerfully. And I'm celebrating the progress that you've done to work on this, and rewiring your brain to see, I don't need to be a people pleaser because people love and accept me for who I am, not what I can do for them.
Yeah, it is empowering. I know it sounds like I'm on an American chat show now, but it's really empowering when you're kind of more in control, but in a less controlling way. It's really weird.
Yeah. Well, 70% of our success is based on the mind, right? You can teach all the skill in the world, whether you're an engineer or, you're a CPO or a CEO, you can develop your team through the next hot course, and like AI is hot at the minute, you can take them on it. They're learning a new skill. But if this has negative thoughts, or is judgmental of self, of others, or is too busy in the behavioral adaptations, it's unable to get you to your optimum performance, because that mind is holding you back, both energetically and through output. Whereas actually, if you can teach skill and you can develop the mind to serve you powerfully, that's when you then fly. And we can all associate with those days when we're in that, but imagine living a life where that's 99% of your how your being is.
Yeah, it is right. So when people come to you, generally they have a challenge, but they don't necessarily know what that challenge is. They just know that they're a bit stuck, or
people come to me for different reasons. Often it's people that really see the value in coaching, because my hat could be a coach, it could be a mentor, it could be a thought advisor, could be a trainer as well. But actually what I like to do is slow the conversation down and see, okay, what are they not seeing? Like, one of my superpowers is I'm able to see what others can't see in themselves, but I can also see not only the reality right now, but also the potential if we develop that. So I like to use a tool which really assesses the saboteurs of your mind, and we all have them, right? So it's never judgmental, but it's understanding what they are. There's 9. And then we start there, and then we can develop the skill on top of that. So some of the saboteurs, without going through them all, we've talked about 2 of them, being people pleaser. We've talked about hyperachiever. There's restless, there is controller, there's victim, there's hypervigilant. So it's understanding how they could potentially be holding us back, but also how our ego is not how we are conditioned to believe what ego is maybe arrogance or over arrogance. Our ego is how we exist 70% of the time. It's our perceiving self, the way that we see the world. And again, that's where our saboteurs really play into this. Do we see the world from a positive place, that even if we fail, we find the gift in it? How do we see others? Do we view them from a lens of judgment, including ourselves? Or do we see it really powerfully, that the world's full of possibility? We did this with Jane, right? Where does fear hold us back instead of fuel us forwards? What's the gift in everything? And then I know I keep talking, but if we look at the controller saboteur, a controller, there's times of strength where we need a leader to take control. Like the pandemic was a great example. Nobody wants a collaborative leader at the beginning of the pandemic to say, what does everyone think we should do? What we want then is someone to say, I don't know what's happening right now, but here's what we know with our highest wisdom. This is the action we're going to take. That's where a controller is at a strength. Where a controller becomes a saboteur is when you micromanage your team. when you're not empowering them to bring their strengths and their gifts, and you're trusting them to fly, and you get out of their way. And that's more present than not. That's where your controller is actually holding you back. And the lie that the controller tells you is, if I don't do it, no one else will, or no one can do it as good as me. Right. So if you can identify now that those thoughts are popping up, then, and I can send this survey to anybody that wants it as well, if they want to see and they're curious, what are the saboteurs holding them back.
That's interesting. We work with lots of SMEs and founder-led businesses and owners, and obviously most of our talent population also work with senior leadership teams. And in small businesses, especially if it's your baby, the product is your baby, and you're the founder or co-founder, it's quite hard to relinquish control. I've seen it just from speaking to these people in my own network and community, but also having them as clients. So how do you go around fixing something like that, in terms of not fixing, but changing your mindset, or being able to relinquish some control? Because actually that must be exhausting as well, that you can never, you're getting bigger, your product's growing. So it's not just how it was when you started, and there's only a certain amount of hours in the day. How can you actually say, it's okay, I've got, great people in place. What do I do to go and start looking at that?
Yeah, and it timing is key as well, and it's knowing when you need to be at helicopter level and when I need to be in the detail. And especially as a new business or a small business, and you're the founder and you're going through rapid change, then there is times where you want to be right in the trenches with the team, and you want to be that controller that we've just talked about.
Yeah.
But you're right, it is exhausting. And the reality is your diary becomes so full that you're not allowing your right brain space to be able to think creatively or see the bigger picture, because you're reactive and going from meeting to meeting to meeting, or task to task to task. So you're unable to slow down, speed up, which is one of my biggest frameworks to live by. So for me, it's around steps, and it looks unique for every person depending on where they're at and where they're trying to get to. But understanding that if you want your business to go 10x, you can't do it alone. And also what's got you here is not going to get you there. So it's things like, for me, the power of communication. So it may be baby steps in trust, but with really clear boundaries. So you may trust your team to trust yourself to not be at a meeting, but set it up for success with really clear boundaries of what you'd love to get out of it. Or it could be investing in someone from a developmental perspective, because you know that you want them to take over something. Yeah. But actually you set them up for success. Here's where we are. Here's where I'd love to be. Or even putting timelines in. Harriet, I would really love you to own this. Please check back in with me by this Thursday to show me progress, so that my controller can rest. And being vulnerable to say, my preference is to be in control. So what I need from you in this moment is for you to help me is over communication, showing me progress and telling me where you're struggling, so that we don't get to a point where there's a crisis and I need to fuel my ego to believe that my ego was right, because the mind's always looking to be proved right, that I need to be in the detail. Let's be open and honest with each other. But you've got, as the leader, you've got to create that safe space where people can be open that they're struggling, and you lean in and support them. Or if they fail, you see that as a really great space. I was speaking to a CEO the other week who said, I love when my team fail. I would rather they took a risk and fail, and we learn from it, than be paralyzed in not taking action and we don't grow and scale. And it was so refreshing to hear.
Yeah, there's another saying, isn't there, around, no mistake is a bad one. Well, that's not something really profound, but what I mean is, we all know in life you need to sometimes, that the mistake is not making the move to to see if it's going to work or not, I guess. And I'm seeing that as the older I get.
Yeah, the greatest learnings and developments in our lives, personally and professionally, are when we've had tough moments and we've allowed our mind to see the gift in them.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and I'm not saying that founders are always of a certain age, but actually we see quite a lot of founders who are fairly young, so quite green, maybe haven't gone into another business, but another startup, and then decided to come out with their own product. So that's a totally different generational thing. If we're talking about people of our generation versus the new generation coming through, have you seen, or is there a lot of disparity between the two and in between?
Yes, and actually this is a really hot topic that's coming to me at the moment in leading Gen Zs, and the concept of understanding, from baby boomers to Gen X to millennials, then to Gen Zs, and how different. The reality is that baby boomers and Gen Xers, and I'm just at the end of millennial, to give some insight into my age. But I do have some some Gen X tendencies as well. But we've created, between the boomer, the X, and the millennial, the later age of a millennial, have created these Gen Zs by over-parenting. And, we didn't teach Gen Zs how to fail. Now, I'm generalizing here, and everybody is unique, and, I'm a big believer in that. But, we've over-managed the situation by putting coaches and trainers in. So if our child was struggling in a topic, we've got them extra study. We didn't get access to that as a child. Or I've seen it, I was using this example the other day. My sports day, there was a winner and a loser. I went to my nephew's sports day. It was years ago now. There was no winner. It was just everyone's taking part, which has strengths to it. But also, what are we saying? That our kids can never fail and can never lose? And now most organizations within the next 5 years will have 30% of their workforce by this younger generation. And they're more open and honest. They come with such power and such strengths that it's about us understanding and utilizing the strengths. For me, this is where reverse mentoring could be really powerful as we move through these new changing ages, because the strengths around, Gen Zs love change, are change agents. They're innovative. They know technology like we've never seen. They're the only generation to grow up in total technology. Everything is instant. They can make things happen. They're open and honest about what's happening to them. They want to change the world. So there's so many strengths, but then on the flip side, there are opportunities. And again, I'm generalizing. They don't know how to prioritize correctly because everything's available to them, and they can have a fear of missing out. So actually not being able to switch off a notification, which we know the algorithms try and push us to go back online, or believing that there's so much more out there. They're the most stressed generation, but also teaching them that there's a gift in failure. But the good thing is the stress comes with openness about help me, and what they expect from a leader is real empathy and deep care, which, if you then flip to baby boomers or Gen X's, we were told to leave our feelings at the door. You leave your work at home, you come to work and you work solidly. Whereas Gen Zs are like, I'm not, because I don't know how to do that. And I'm only going to work my hours because I want to live life to the full. Whereas Gen X's are like, well, when I wanted to succeed, you work every hour under the sun. But actually the strength in both, like Gen X's know how to fail and see the bounce back. Teach Gen Zs. Teach them how to prioritize. For me, there's like,
when you say it, it's so, obviously it's so clear when you say it, but I just hear, I hear this generation, some people call it, they're work shy, they only want this and they don't know how lucky they've got it. And then I hear our generation, which is part of, and I'm like, God, I would never have left school. I didn't go to uni, but I would never left my place of education, thought I could go and start a business on my own. You just did. Join a business 8 till 6 or whatever. Don't complain. You're lucky to have a job. And there's no right in that either. But it's kind of, there's this big, broad, stream now of, and actually maybe there's somewhere to meet slightly in the middle.
100%. If we were able to understand and merge the different generations for their strengths and support each other's opportunities, and the way, again, it's how we see the world, because it's what we were conditioned to believe and what we grew up seeing. But actually, if you can blend them both together, imagine how powerful your organization would be.
Yeah, and actually we've still got, there's us technically at the top in the sense of you've been working for longer, so usually you're in those level roles where you're probably seeing out the last 10-15 years of your career, and then you've got people coming up rapidly, as you say, because they're the ones that are determined in a different way, but they want that work-life balance and everything else. But they ask the questions, the things that we didn't. Again, I'm generalizing, but necessarily do, because we were told to be quiet and just get on with it. So actually, it makes total sense to have a business of a blend of both, but somewhere there's got to be that conversational piece, and that obviously then leads on to company culture and everything else. Because if you've got a culture where psychological safety is key, and you've got that open door policy, and I think so many more businesses, and it's going to depend on the size as well, are getting better at that. But it's that's going to take time as well, isn't it? As everything does.
It's all about investment and understanding. For me, the growth comes from the cultural piece, right? And no one person, especially when you want to scale a business, you as an individual or as a small team can take a business so far, but to get to the next stage of where you want to be and have a life, It is about this culture, and culture is not pool tables and cool stuff. It is about the psychological safety. It is about the investment in development. It is about the investment in workplace experiences. It is making that, especially with hybrids, if you want your team to come in, help them see the value in coming in. Like, don't ask your team to come in and then have a back-to-back diary. On the days that you're in the office, be free to connect, be free to, collaborate and brainstorm, and then make the days at home the busier days. So there's so much around, if you want to grow and scale in a healthy way that has a great work-life balance and an engaged and high-performing, sustainable team, it is investing in the culture.
And you're right, the pool tables used to be the big wow thing, and now it's not about that. But I don't think the younger generation want that anyway.
No,
they're all around wanting to be able to have their point of view, and also to the point of not coming into the office to be in back-to-back meetings. It's about collaboration, but in free environments. So not we're having a meeting here, and again, to the other point of, we can all be meetinged out, and then you never actually get to do any of the stuff we discussed. So if we were to finish our conversation on one other thing that we haven't necessarily touched on, is there anything else you'd like to, I guess, just cover briefly or mention, and then we can leave the viewers hanging, or at least thinking about something different that we haven't necessarily sparked their imagination with yet?
What a big question.
in about a 5-minute answer, please.
I know. My brain is like, oh, this is good. I feel
we've touched on sabotage. We all know that from when the things we grow up with, the kind of impact our younger years have now is being seen in kind of how we live and work in our lives. Coaching, I know you've obviously mentioned coaching and mentoring. Is there anything else around that we could say to leaders of the community? Because most of these people watching this nearly all will be in the HR space, so they've got an impact in how their business is run and that sort of thing. Is there anything else that these business leaders should be looking at for their teams?
Actually, I would say here that a lot of my clients are CPOs or HR directors or the CEOs themselves. And what I find is the higher you get, the lonelier it can become, because your development is, or if you're an entrepreneur as well, right? Because especially if you've grown and developed within an organization, you're used to having a leader that's put development plans in for you, and you've had a great mentor. But as you get to this certain level, that stops, and it can get quite lonely. And we're leading in this new world where we're being encouraged to understand what our thoughts and feelings are saying and doing, not only in our work life but in our personal life. And often in the HR space as well, the leaders are amazing at giving to others and putting themselves second, so they give to the organization beyond belief. My advice would be, make this year, if you haven't already, a year to invest in you. And not necessarily just reading books, although I'm a big advocate of books, podcasts, talks, but actually truly invest in you. Be intentional around what's holding me back, not just in career growth, but in true inner peace and happiness. And then make a brave step in understanding what you would love. Shoot for the moon, and the worst case, you fall in the stars. What did that look like for you? And then invest in that.
I like that saying, shoot for the moon, in worst case you fall into the stars. Nice and padded, soft landing.
Yes.
That's true, isn't it? It's HR, in a sense, you're serving your population, so you're constantly putting yourself last, because that's just the nature of the job. So it's actually about how do you, and as you've said, once you know how to put yourself as an equal first, or as an equal to your population that you're serving, then actually you're probably going to do better things.
Yes, 100%. That will 10x performance or happiness, because it's not always about performance either, right? Sometimes it's about understanding what's important to me in life, or I know there's something missing. One of the biggest bits of feedback that I've had is, yes, it's about performance growth, or yes, it's about people being happier, but it's also thank you. Because my personal life, I've had wives ring me, was probably one of the biggest, and I didn't know this was going to happen, and say, thank you, I've got my husband back.
Wow.
Which, or dad's home and the impact that that's had. But it's on, it's right back to right at the beginning. performance is growing as well. So imagine having a whole life where you've got time for hobbies, you've got time for rest, you've got time for family, and your business is thriving. That's what comes in investing in you with the right person to take you on that journey.
Yeah, that's utopia, isn't it? That everyone wants. That's the balance that people say you can't realistically get.
Yes.
But you can. And I know you can, even though you work the hours you work and how hard you work. I see the other fun stuff you do and you fit in.
Yeah.
So it is possible. Thank you so much. I've loved this. I always love chatting to you anyway. And I know how busy you are. So I'm really appreciative of you giving us your time.
No worries. It was a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Take care. Bye.
Bye now.